22 DLC for Stellaris. As of recording, this can be very overwhelming, and money doesn't grow on trees. However, in this video, I will go through the must-buy DLCs all the way to the least important. Though, however many DLC you have, this video will be useful. And don't worry, if you have all the DLC, I'll be running through what each DLC comes with, which, as someone who has all the DLC, I found really interesting while researching this video. I only started playing when Megacorp came out, and played with all the DLC since then, due to friends having the DLC, as if you play with a host who has the DLC, you get the DLC while in the game. Then I started buying them, and then luckily I'm in a great position because of all you lovely viewers that Paradox give them to me. Now this video will purely go off Steam default pricing, so if you see a deal, use that cut price in your own consideration. Now obviously this is going to be pretty subjective. You know how I like to min-max and not the biggest fan of reading lore. But I'll try and let you know when I'm using personal opinion, but the basis of this list has to come from somewhere. I just thought I'd throw my own hat in the ring, as I've played a little too much of this game, and I can tell you what I've enjoyed the most and used the most in the game. Firstly, Stellaris. Sitting at $40, this is the game. You need the game to use the DLC. It's the basis for everything to come, and some features do eventually get rolled into base game, but for the full experience for Stellaris, you're going to need the DLC. I did do a video a while back, which you can check out, where I played with no DLC, very bland and vanilla for an experienced player. However, if you're new to the game and don't know if you'll enjoy it, you can definitely get a fair few games enjoyment out of the base game before craving DLC. Disclaimer: wait for a sale. It's often on huge discounts when the Steam sales go on for a fraction of the price. You can also potentially get this in a bundle, so before you go and buy it, wait to see if any of the DLCs are something you want, and you can get the base game in the bundle with those DLC. I'll mention the bundles when we've talked about all the DLC that come in the bundle. Now let's get on to the first DLC. Psych! It's the subscription pass. All the DLC. You do need the base game, and the price is $10 for a month, $20 for 3 months, which is 33% off, and $30 for 6 months, which is 50% off. In my personal opinion, this is the best way to try the game, not to keep. What do I mean? So essentially, you get to play with all the DLC enabled. You can turn them off in the launcher if you just wanted to play with a few of them, but I don't know why you do that. But you don't know what bits of the game you like until you play. Maybe I like megastructures, but you like the lore. Well, the DLCs are going to be different to what I recommend. It's hard to know what is actually adding different features, so the rest of the videos are going to be very helpful and hopefully help you out deciding. An alternative way of using the pass instead of trialing the game is if you play games in bursts. You're kind of like me and you get addicted to a game and can only think about it for like a month or two, and then you don't touch it for a year. This pass could be a great alternative for that. Also, I don't know how I play Stellaris with this consistency, as I've had Hoi 4 phases, EU phases, even FIFA COD phases, and this game just prevails. Now, there's an alternative free method to trialing the game, and that's what I kind of already mentioned, was playing with a friend with all the DLC. They host, you get the DLC in that game. If you don't have friends who play Stellaris, you can join my Discord. The link's in the description. People regularly host games, and they're usually beginner friendly and PvE. This could be a great way to try an Origin. Say if you don't have Astral Planes, you can try it. And if you are going to buy any of these DLC or games, consider using my Humble Bundle code. Gives a kickback to the channel, greatly helps out. The link's in the description, the pinned comment. Thanks a lot. So the first actual DLC, Utopia. Yeah, this is just the one that everyone recommends. Nothing original here yet. I've always wondered why it was suggested. Again, I started playing the game long after this came out. So, it adds megastructures. Already a big thing. Habitats. Ascension perks. That's right, you can't pick Ascension perks without Utopia, which I find wild. It adds primitives, which does help the galaxy feel alive, but there's also another DLC that add even more layers on top of that. Advanced slavery, that's a selling point on Steam itself. Essentially, it lets you make livestock, make them domestic servants, or have them as battle roles. Then you have advanced governments, fanatic purifiers, hive minds, and a bunch of origins. There's so much that this DLC adds that I think it's core to Stellaris. I'm surprised it's not rolled into the base game. That just says it all for this DLC. It's a must buy. If you want one DLC DLC, get this one. And for $20, it's pretty much worth it. The next one is Galactic Paragons, coming in at $15. Yes, a newish DLC is very high on this list. What does it add? Council mechanics, dynamic leaders, leveling, we'll get back to this, paragons, new traditions, and more, such as under 1 rule origin, 8 new civics, 12 veteran classes, a bunch of leader traits, 2 new tradition trees, ship, art, and story content. Now, this seems a little bit basic on the surface, especially to more experienced players. The council mechanics, very fun, makes your empire come alive. Now, the leveling is complete ass without Galactic Paragons. I believe you don't have many of the traits, and it picks it randomly for you. The whole fun of leveling your leaders in the game for me is specializing them up. You can create these great stories around how they've become a very good science leader, or upping your alloys on planets, or maybe they get the negative traits, which also makes for a great story. Controversially, this DLC's only good because the free version of it is bad. Yeah, but it still adds a lot more. The origin's pretty fun, civics are pretty good, classes and paragons is also pretty good. I would get this next after Utopia. The next thing you should do, and it's completely free, is subscribe. My channel is essentially a one-stop shop for all things Stellaris. We've got challenges, we've got guides, I showcase really strong and stupid builds, and mods, which I know a lot of you love. They're essentially free DLC. Now moving on to Apocalypse at $20. This adds the fundamentals of Stellaris. Colossus. Cracking planets is a sci-fi dream. You just have to do it. A new ship class, the Titan, which is pretty cool to build up and add into your fleets in the late game. You've also got ion cannons for starbases. Starbases aren't that great, but if you really want to turtle down, which you can achieve, ion cannons will be a must on your starbases. Next, I didn't even know this was an Apocalypse, but it's Marauders. These are basically pirate dormant-ish empires that could spawn in your galaxy, and they also summon the Great Khan as a mid-game crisis, which adds flavor and challenge to your galaxy. Then we've got new Ascension perks, civics, and origins to do with Gaia, Tomb Worlds, and more importantly, barbaric despoilers. They also add Unity ambitions, which I didn't know was a thing in Apocalypse, but essentially late game you can spend your Unity on really powerful edicts, which pretty good. Next up, Megacorp, also coming in at $20. This is your first kind of optional if you don't care for the playstyle, but it still adds some stuff that you will use on other empires. But essentially, you can become a Megacorp, a money-loving, hungry corporation empire. You can build branch offices on other planets, and it's a unique playstyle, which is really fun. But even if you don't play as this playstyle, it adds ecomonopolises, caravaneers, mega structures such as the matter decompressor, mega art installation, or strategic coordinator center, the galactic slave market if you're going evil run, and new ascension perks. This will add a whole bunch of stuff to do in the game, very good value for money. Next up, our first story pack, Synthetic Dawn, coming in at $10. The main reason this is high up is I have a slight bias that I like robots. This just lets you play as robots, more events and storytelling relating to robots, and adds the Machine Rebellion, which I've never had before until I had to do the achievement a few videos ago. Also adds machine portraits. Machines give you a completely unique style of play, ignoring consumer goods and food, and adds new mechanics and a whole bunch of civics, which is really fun to play and spices the game up a bit from a normal bio. So our first bundle can finally be talked about, the Starter Edition. On Steam, this is currently $50, and it offers a base of 38% off of the current things. That's Stellaris, the base game, the Galaxy Edition upgrade pack, which I'll get into in a minute, the Synthetic Dawn story pack, and Utopia. So it's combining robots and the base mechanics. With no sales, 38% off. The Galaxy Edition upgrade pack, I don't actually own. I just realized. But essentially, this is defaulted at $13 and gives you extra content such as a novel, collector book, signed wallpaper, original soundtrack, Galaxy Forum icon and avatar, and a new alien race, which is just cosmetic. This is cool if you want to support the game. You get it in these bundles, but it doesn't fundamentally add anything of use. But hey, you get it anyway. Now, important thing about the bundles is it also includes the sales. So if you're seeing a massive sale and you want to try Stellaris, maybe a few DLC, I highly recommend this edition. Utopia and Synthetic Dawn are great DLC. The reason Synthetic Dawn isn't second is because the previous DLCs add a lot to any gameplay, whereas Synthetic Dawn is just robots. But if you love robots, get it. Next up is Federations at $20 as well. This gives you expanded federations, the galactic community, new origins, the Juggernaut, and a mega shipyard. Federations are pretty cool. There's a bunch of trade bills that I do that rely on them. They're a great alternative approach to just murdering everyone, and the Galactic community does form every single game, so it's quite important. These usually lead to memes, such as everyone dying to a crisis and you trying to pass the Tianqi Conservation Act, but Federations is kind of the backbone for a lot of DLC up and coming where you need the Galactic Council. Juggernaut is a cool, massive ship you can build, and the Mega Shipyard is a very good mega structure. I mean, you're going to be building a lot of ships. Next up, speaking of things that need the Galactic community, Nemesis, also at $20, adds the first crisis path where you can become a crisis. You also get the Galactic Custodian, or I am the Senate. It also does add a bunch of espionage stuff, and it comes with a new ship set. Become the Crisis, very cool. I've played through it so many times. Adds new ways of building ships as they're out of minerals, adds a bunch of benefits, and you get to blow up the galaxy. Who doesn't like that? Galactic Custodian, also fun. In long games, I usually always go it. And espionage is pretty bad, but luckily the first 2 points make up for it. You can use espionage to do things, but it's just underwhelming. You know how I feel on this if you've watched any of my videos. Hopefully they do a revamp to espionage and Nemesis becomes a lot higher, but it's already pretty good. Next up, Overlord, also $20. This adds advanced vassalization mechanics, giving you specialized types, negotiate contracts, etc. It's not just about being an Overlord though, it adds new enclaves such as the Shroudwalkers, Scrappers, and Mercenaries that you can make yourself. This DLC also adds 5 new origins to play with. Imperial Fiefdom, where you start as a vassal, Slingshot to the Stars, where you start with one of the new mega structures added here, Subterranean, you're basically dwarves underground, Teacher of the Shroud, Spiritualists, and Progenitor Hives. These origins are really fun and unique. You can play multiple runs through a lot of them. One of the best DLC for unique origins. It also comes with 2 killer structures, orbital rings, they're very fun, and hyper relays, also pretty good, but not as good as orbital rings. And of course, the mega structure, Quantum Catapult, where you get to fling your ships across the galaxy, and it also helps with missing in action time. Also comes with music tracks, which is pretty nice. This DLC, overall, very good. The reason it's not higher is because they're not key game mechanics that you will use in every single game, no matter what origin you pick. This is kind of how I've done the DLCs, and we're getting into ones that are more and more niche, but it's still a good DLC. Once you've got Overlords, I suggest Machine Age, one of the newest DLC on this list. However, it is $25, one of the most expensive, but the price is kind of justified with how much they add. By now, you've probably seen all the endgame Crisis, and this adds a new one, Satana. Very unique to the other Crisis. There's events, things you can do to slow her down, lots of lore. It's a very well-made Crisis and pretty cool. There's also a new player Crisis where you just get as much tech as possible. Yeah, they appealed to me with that one. Now you've used Synthetic Dawn quite a lot, you probably are craving a bit more of an individualistic machine, and that's what this adds. You also get cybernetic and synthetic portraits that adapt depending on your phases. You get new situations and advanced authority swapping, which come with 3 different ascension paths: virtuality, modularity, and nanotech. All these are really fun and powerful to go down, adding more content and paths that you can take while you're in the game if you're machine ascending. You also get 3 new origins: Cybernetic Creed, Synthetic Fertility, and Arc Welders. These are also pretty unique and interesting, and the DLC comes with 2 killer structures, Dyson Swarm and Arc Furnace, where in the Arc Welders origin, it's themed around the Arc Furnace. These killer structures are really damn good. I build them in almost every game now. They're good. You also get 6 new civics, 2 ship sets, new pop traits, and new music. Now, this list has added a lot of mechanical stuff. You can see what I like in a game. There's a lot to do, a lot of ways you can play it. The one thing we haven't really added is making the galaxy feel a lot more alive. We've got some enclaves, a lot of different diverse empires, federations forming the galactic community, but with Leviathans coming in at $10, we get big old monsters that give you bonuses and relics if you can fight them, and with the right civic, you can revive them. There's also a bunch more enclaves, the traders for rare resources, artisans for unity, happiness and pop growth, and the creator order with science and information. This also does add War in Heaven, which was news to me. This is a unique later game situation that lets you either pick a side with fallen empires, either of them, or fight them all because they're all idiots. This can lead to a great conclusion to your game, leading your galaxy to victory or getting crushed. This also comes with a bunch of art and music. Next, distant stars at $10. You get more anomalies, more unique systems, L-gates, 3 Leviathans. I think the creator order, not entirely sure on that one. This, again, similar to Leviathans, makes the galaxy feel a lot more alive, and at $10, it's totally worth that. Also, exploring the L-gate can be interesting and fun, and whoever owns it basically has a hub across the galaxy. Next, on a similar vein, is Ancient Relics. This is coming in at $10. This is probably the most controversial one. A lot of people have this higher. I often don't care because I do like the lore, but I like just making strong empires. This adds Ancient Relics, a new resource, which can be interesting to use, to be fair. Adds a bunch of dig sites, Bowlands are new precursor chains, and relic worlds. Honestly, if you like lore, if you like reading the story and stuff, you should get this a lot earlier. But again, it's my list. Next up, we have Grand Archive, another newer DLC at $15. This adds 151 specimens to collect, with buffs, which I like, and also lots of lore. This adds the Vivarium as well, where you get to capture and breed space fauna and genetically enhance to build custom fleets. It also adds a Mid-Game Crisis, the Void Worm Plague, 2 new origins, the Treasure Hunters and Primal Calling, 2 space fauna types, the Void Worm and Cuthaloids, 2 new tradition trees, Archivism, focusing on your specimens, and Domestication, focusing on Vivarium and custom fleets. There's also 70 new relics and 3 music tracks. This is just great. It adds to Leviathans, Distant Stars, and Ancient Relics, and has a bunch of content. However, I would focus on those 3 previous if you want more life in the galaxy and more lore, but this is a great addition. The origins are fun, specimens are pretty good, and the Vivarium could be funny. Next up, Astral Planes. $20. Essentially, this is more dig sites, however, a lot more lore, and it has branching narratives, so it's not a single story. You have options, and depending on what options you take, you'll get different outcomes. Again, not my cup of tea, but there's astral actions, there's relics, all relating to astral planes, and the resource you get, which is astral threads, I believe. These are pretty good, which you will use in runs, but they're not game-breaking or a must. There's also a new origin Rift World, where you can really explore this DLC. Essentially, you can live without astral planes, but if you enjoy exploring and lore, this is really one for you and could be much higher on the list. Next, First Contact. Coming in at $15, it adds 3 new origins, Broken Shackles, Payback, and Fear of the Dark. It also adds new pre-FTL interaction options and cloaking technology. The origins aren't bad, but they're very narrative and pre-scripted. Can't really explain it more without spoiling them, but I've basically only ever played them once through, maybe twice. There's just better, more open origins if I wanted to play another different empire. The pre-FTL interaction options are okay. The observation technologies are pretty good, but if you don't crank pre-FTLs up all the way, you probably won't get many of them. Add some life to the galaxy, but not something you need to focus on. Cloaking is very interesting. I should probably use it more, but against AIs, you can just bully them. In multiplayer games, maybe a cloaking gambit is good, but again, it's just that. However, when I do my cloaking only run-throughs, which I've done before, it's really fun, and I should probably play like it more. Uncloaking a massive torpedo fleet that needs to be close range on top of some massive fleets and ships is very funny. Next up, our first species pack. These are low down, mainly because they don't add content that you're going to use in every single game, regardless of the species you use. These are very much, you have to pick them at the start of the game to get the content, but they're still not bad. There's just other better ones which you'll utilize in every single game. First up, we have Toxoids at $10. This comes with 2 new origins, Knights of the Toxic God and Overtuned. 3 new civics, Toxic Baths, Scavengers, and Relentless Industrialists. 4 new traits, Incubator, Inorganic Breath, Noxious, and Exotic Metabolism. New ship set, new species portraits, new cityscapes, and new advisor voice. The reason I rate this as the highest species pack is mainly because of the origins. Knights of the Toxic God is pretty fun. It's got a lot of lore, which I know I said I don't like much, but it's still pretty good. It also isn't entirely singular focus. You can actually customize the bonuses and benefits you get while doing it, and it's really in depth. You could probably play this a bunch of times. I know a lot of people love this origin and only play it in every single game, and it's got a really good mechanical, unique start. It's just a good RP and fun origin to play through, and it's pretty strong and interesting. Overtune's also pretty unique. The traits are fun because min-max's dream. You get OP traits, but you have to balance it with leader lifespan. It's pretty much the origin, but it's still pretty good. The civics and traits are really interesting as well, and with the traits you don't have to be Toxoids to use them, which I like. Some traits we're going to see you have to be specifically a fungoid, for example. Next up, it was a close call what to put first, but it's Aquatics, coming in at $10. We get 2 new origins, Here Be Dragons and Ocean Paradise, the Angler's Civic, Hydrocentric Ascension perk, aquatic species traits, 15 aquatic portraits and a robot one, water theme ship set, aquatic advisor, and 4 nameless. I do really like this DLC, and honestly, I'd put Aquatics and Toxoids joint, but I wanted to give you a proper order. Here Be Dragons, quite interesting. You start with a drake in your system, and you can eventually tame it, and maybe its offspring, a dragon fleet. Ocean Paradise, really good, tall origin. You get to expand the planet with ice mining stations, you get a bunch of bonuses on it. It's pretty interesting, unique. Speaking of unique, Angler's Civic is pretty cool too. It replaces farmer jobs with anglers and pearl divers, which I think is a really cool idea for a Civic, and they should do stuff like that more. The Hydrocentric Ascension perk lets you just flood everyone. Who doesn't want to do that? The species trait is really cool as well, as you do not lock to the Aquatics portrait, but you have to be on an ocean world, and then you get a bunch of bonuses. Very cool, very interesting. Next is Humanoids, also at $10. You get 3 new civics, Masterful Crafters, Pleasure Seekers, and Pompous Purists. You also get the Clone Army Origin, 10 portraits, Humanoid ship set, pre-scripted Empire the Vor, Cityscape art, and new voice overs. Masterful Crafters, very, very, very strong. I use it whenever I want to min-max. Essentially gives you a building slot per 3 industrial districts, gives you trade value and a more consumer goods from consumer good jobs. Pleasure Seekers gives you decadent living standard, and Pompous Purists, they don't want to speak to anyone. I believe this got a pass through the Galactic Custodian, but I could be wrong. It has a decent amount of things that you can do. Clone Army is very strong and quite interesting, gives you a unique way of playing, but it only gives 1 origin, hence why it's the 3rd best species pack and sitting at number 18. Next up, again, species pack, $10, Necroids. This DLC comes with a new origin, Necrophage, 3 new civics, 16 portraits, ship set, advisor voice, city set and diplo room, nameless, and building appearances. The main reason this is here is because of the origin, Necrophage. It gives you a powerful primary species, which then consume others. The one thing I dislike about this species pack is to actually play as a Necrophage, you have to go the origin to get the trait Necrophage. But it is interesting, it's a different way of playing, and since we're this far down in the list, there's not going to be many things that add gameplay for everything, and the origin is quite fun and unique to play with, hunting and preying on pre-FTLs, or maybe other empires. The civics are interesting too, but let's move on to the Plantoids species pack at $10. This is down here because you might see there's no origin. It does give 2 new civics, Catalytic Processing, which is its saving grace, Idyllic Bloom, 3 species traits, 15 Plantoid portraits, ship set, and cityscape art. Catalytic Processing lets you turn food into alloys. It just changes up the gameplay. It's pretty good. Idyllic Bloom lets you convert stuff to Gaia worlds. Also pretty cool. Honestly, these species traits are pretty nice too. Phototrophic turns food upkeep into energy, and then Radiotrophic does the same, but if you're on a tomb world, you get no energy upkeep. Very cool and interesting. Budding essentially just gives you pop assembly based on the amount of pops on your planet. Also pretty unique, combined with hives, very strong. Again, some just more flavor sprinkled in there. This is like the salt, the bigger DLCs is like the main, like steak or something. I don't know. Next up, not actually a species pack. That's right, it's Cosmic Storms. It's this far down, $13. It comes with 8 dynamic storm types, a new origin, Storm Chasers, 3 new civics, a weather forecast map mode, new tech, resolutions, and edicts related to storms. Okay, let's break this DLC down. You're essentially paying $13, which is more than the species pack, for storms that you might never see, that don't really do too much in terms of worrying you. The buffs they give can be good, but again, you can't make the build around them. It does kind of make the galaxy feel a bit more alive, but I've played like 10 games since this DLC's come out now, and I've just ignored the storms. The origin is quite interesting. The most fun I've had with this DLC is turning storms to maximum. So if you really want to play with this DLC and get the most out of it, just turn all the storms up in the settings. The civics are actually probably the best part of this. Some are quite strong and a little bit interesting. The weather forecast map mode actually looks quite cool, and the techs kind of clog up your tech tree, which is quite funny. So you're kind of paying to lose if you're min-maxing. The resolutions don't really matter, and the edicts can kind of help. Hunger down's alright. Again, buy anything else first. If you're a completionist or really like storms, get this. And at the bottom of the rubble, the pile, Lithoids. $10. I didn't realize how bad this DLC was. It literally adds Lithoids and 50 new portraits, 1 robot, and a ship set. But again, no civics, no origins, just Lithoids, which is not the worst thing, but it's literally just adding a singular trait called Lithoid, which replaces food upkeep with minerals, gives you less pop assembly and pop growth, but gives you 50% habitability, army health, and lethal lifespan. That trait's not bad, but why is a $10 DLC only adding that and portraits? This needs the custodian to look at. We need civics, we need origins. This would go right up the pile, but I cannot believe, I genuinely didn't know before researching it. That's all this added. I'm a loss for words. Now, I did say about bundles, and I've only mentioned one. That's because the bundles kind of include everything. There is the Ultimate Bundle, which is base price $290, which is a 10% saving, and it adds all the DLC except for the ones released in 2024. If you really want all the DLC, I would go for this, but wait for sales. The sales do apply in that bundle. From what I've seen on SteamDB, the last sale was $122 for all DLC except for the ones released in 2024. That's pretty good. It also removes anything that you own. So if you do own Stellaris, that's $40 knocked off that price, or whatever the sale price is. Consider checking out the bundles. Now you might be wondering, what about the 2024s? There's the Season 8 expansion pass coming in at $75. This also comes with Rick the Cube, which is a cool machine portrait, but doesn't functionally do anything, and comes with base game Stellaris. This is giving you a 20% discount. Again, it doesn't include any sales, but usually the newer content doesn't go on sales, and if it does, it's very low. I think it's worth the Season 8 pass if you've got everything else, really like machines, and honestly, Grand Archives is very solid. It does come with Cosmic Storms, but it's not awful. It's just, it shouldn't be $13, and I mean, it comes with the pass, so I guess you get it. Now, I may have missed things. I may have said things wrong. I've tried to do as much research as I can, but some of the stuff online is very hard to find when I own all the DLC. I've tried my best, but if I've missed anything, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and make a pinned comment that contains any corrections or additional information. Also, let me know if you think I'm wrong. This is my personal opinion, but maybe I've really messed up somewhere. I feel like Ancient Relics is going to trigger a lot of you. Now, if you did just start playing Stellaris and really want a tech guide to know how to get all these OP things, click this guide. That is a complete technology masterclass, and I'll see you in that one.